Get ready, because what you're about to see will leave you speechless. Sir Cliff Richard, one of the most legendary figures in music history, has shocked everyone with his current lover. For decades, fans have speculated about his private life, but no one could have predicted this stunning twist. From glamorous romances to guarded secrets, Cliff has always kept the world guessing, until now. Stay tuned, because once we reveal who has captured his heart, you'll be left gasping and asking yourself, how did no one see this coming? Before we get to the big reveal, let's rewind and see how Cliff's love life took this unexpected turn. The man behind the legend. Who exactly is Cliff Richard? Believe it or not, the man the world knows as Britain's Eternal Bachelor was born Harry Roger Webb on the 14th of October 1940, not in London, not even in the UK, but in Lucknow, India. From those faraway beginnings, he somehow transformed into one of the biggest names in British music, selling millions, topping charts for decades, and charming generations. But while the public saw him as the polished, clean-cut superstar, it's his private life that sparked the most raised eyebrows, especially when whispers about his latest companion started swirling. Cliff before the fame. Cliff didn't just appear one day as the country's most eligible bachelor. His story starts in a strict religious household that gave him that squeaky clean image he carried for years. His parents, Roger and Dorothy, made sure their son grew up with values that matched the picture-perfect star the public would later fall in love with. But underneath all that Sunday school charm, young Cliff was already hooked on the rebellious rhythms of rock and roll. While classmates saw a quiet, well-behaved boy, behind closed doors, he was soaking in the music that would flip his world upside down. And let's be real, knowing how buttoned up his upbringing was makes the whispers about his present-day special someone feel even juicier. After all, who would have guessed the boy from that prim little household would grow into the man making headlines now for who he's been spotted with? The rise to stardom. Before Cliff Richard became the man of mystery, he was Harry Webb, a teenager with a guitar who shook Britain awake in 1958 with Move It. Critics called it the country's first true rock and roll hit, and almost overnight, Cliff went from schoolboy to heartthrob. With his sharp suits, slick hair, and charm that rivaled Elvis, he didn't just sing the hits, he defined an era. By the 60s, he was everywhere. Chart toppers, movie roles, endless tours. Britain finally had its own pop idol, and fans couldn't get enough. But the brighter his star shone, the more people wanted to peek behind the curtain. Who was Cliff when the screaming stopped? Did someone special have his heart? That's the twist. His private life never matched his public success. And that silence, deliberate or not, only fueled the rumors. If fame made him untouchable, his love life, or the lack of it, made him a mystery. And decades later, that very mystery is exactly why people can't stop gasping at who he's been spotted with now. From teen idol to timeless icon. In the late 50s, he burst out with raw rock and roll energy, Britain's answer to Elvis. But unlike many of his peers, he refused to get stuck in one era. The 60s brought polished pop anthems that played on his clean-cut charm. By the 70s and 80s, he experimented with rockabilly grooves, disco influences, and even radio-friendly power ballads that kept him lodged in the charts. Then came a curveball: contemporary Christian music. For Cliff, it wasn't a marketing move. It was personal. His faith had always been central, and weaving it into his songs gave fans a glimpse behind the polished performer. It showed that his career wasn't just built on trends, but on a kind of spiritual compass that shaped the choices he made. What makes his music fascinating is how unpredictable it is. One moment he's delivering a breezy summer hit like Summer Holiday. The next he's belting out dramatic pop rock. And later, he's leading worship songs in packed arenas. Cliff's evolution isn't just about survival, it's about reinvention. And that makes his musical story as layered as his private one. But while his music shifted through the decades, his relationships remained far less public. marked only by a handful of confirmed partners who added their own chapter to his story. His music may have changed with every decade, but his love life? That's been a lot more low-key, with just a few known partners stepping into the spotlight along the way. Inside Cliff's romantic past. If there's one question that refuses to die, it's this: who's really by Cliff Richard's side when the cameras stop rolling? The singer's love life has been wrapped in mystery. No wedding bells, no official partner, just endless speculation. And while Cliff himself has always played it cool, that hasn't stopped stories from piling up. Over the years, a handful of women have been tied to his name, some rumored romances, others confirmed companions. Each one added a new twist to the puzzle of Cliff's private world, leaving fans wondering just how close they really got to Britain's most famously unattached star. Delia Wicks, the first love. In the early 1960s, Cliff Richard experienced what many consider his first real romance, with Delia Wicks, a dancer he met while performing at the London Palladium. She wasn't a star in the spotlight like Cliff, but part of the show's cast, and their chemistry began quietly behind the scenes. Their connection grew in a sweet, understated way, with moments both on and off stage sparking rumors of something more. Still, Cliff was one of the most recognizable young stars in Britain, and that came with complications. His fans were famously devoted, and any hint of a serious relationship could have stirred a frenzy. To keep things discreet, their time together was limited to quiet moments. Coffee dates early in the morning, sometimes with Cliff's mother nearby. It was a relationship lived in the shadows, warm but careful, with both of them aware of the scrutiny surrounding him. Despite the affection, Cliff eventually chose to end the romance. He felt that his career, which was just starting to soar internationally, demanded all of his attention. He worried that the responsibilities of marriage and family life might pull him away from the stage and the music that had become his entire world. Ending things with Delia wasn't about a lack of feeling. It was about a young man caught between love and the weight of expectation. For Delia, it was a bittersweet goodbye. Cliff's choice revealed a pattern that would define much of his personal life in the decades to come, valuing companionship deeply, but never quite allowing it to outweigh the demands of fame. Their story remains a glimpse of what might have been, a romance overshadowed by the unstoppable pull of his career. Sue Barker, the missed match. If Cliff Richard's bachelor status was a mystery, then his relationship with Sue Barker in the late 1970s was the closest the public ever got to cracking it. The whispers started the moment they were seen together. Glamorous tennis star, charming pop icon, shared smiles, shared glances. It was like a scene lifted straight from a glossy magazine. Suddenly everyone went wild. Could this be the love story that finally dethroned the Eternal Bachelor? Fans across Britain had opinions. Everyone wanted Cliff to have a real proper romance, complete with candlelit dinners, flowers, maybe even a scandal-free wedding. Together, they could have been the ultimate power couple of their era. Photographs of the two of them started circulating, attending charity events, tennis matches, and concerts. The public ate it up. For once, it seemed like Cliff might be opening the doors to his guarded personal life. Cliff has admitted that he loved Sue deeply, but love alone wasn't enough.
When you're a sort of, quote, public figure, people tend to watch you a lot. And I found that when we're at national matches like Whiteman Cup or Davis Cup, I really don't give two hoots what people think of me.
He knew that entering a lifelong commitment required more than infatuation. It required time, attention, and a willingness to put someone else first. And honestly, he just couldn't. His devotion to his music and performing left little room for marriage. For him, the cost of love was too high, and for Sue, the pressures of being in the public eye with a partner as famous and scrutinized as Cliff may have been overwhelming. Their breakup was quiet, almost ghost-like in its subtlety. No dramatic confrontations, no tabloid exposés, just a careful and mutual acknowledgement that the relationship couldn't last. It wasn't about not loving each other. It was about recognizing the realities of their separate lives. Cliff's career had always been a priority, and he simply couldn't compromise it for the sake of romance, no matter how real the feelings were. Just as the world thought they had a handle on Cliff's heart, another name began to swirl through the rumor mill, a young dancer who seemed to light up every room she entered. Could Jackie Irving be the spark that changed everything? Jackie Irving, the almost bride. Jackie Irving entered Cliff Richard's life during a summer in Blackpool in the 1960s, bringing a spark of joy and carefree energy that captured his attention. She was young, talented, and radiant, the kind of woman who could have transformed his private life into something more ordinary, more familiar. Fans caught glimpses of their connection through theater outings, summer strolls, and behind-the-scenes moments, sparking endless speculation. Could this vibrant dancer be the one to finally break the pop star's legendary bachelor streak? The tension between possibility and reality would make this chapter of Cliff's life unforgettable. But the reality was more complicated than anyone imagined. Cliff was conscious of the high stakes of love, especially when fame was involved. He understood that marriage wasn't just a romantic decision. It had career implications, social repercussions, and personal sacrifices that most couples never faced. When he was told that marrying Jackie could cost him a substantial portion of his fan base, potentially 25 to 30%, the weight of that decision hit hard. Cliff's choice to end things with Jackie wasn't made lightly, but it was decisive. Love alone wasn't enough to tip the balance against a lifetime of career achievements and public adoration. He broke it off, reportedly with the help of a friend, in a manner that was tactful but emotionally distancing. For Jackie, it was heartbreaking, even if handled respectfully. When it seemed the pattern of almosts couldn't get any more tantalizing, another connection quietly captured the imagination of fans, one that spanned years, stages, and shared moments, leaving whispers and speculation swirling long after the curtain fell. Olivia Newton-John, the one that got away. Cliff Richard and Olivia Newton-John had that rare kind of chemistry that made fans sit up and whisper, "Is this finally the romance that cracks the Eternal Bachelor?" On stage, on screen, in interviews, there was a spark, subtle, unspoken, yet impossible to ignore. Every duet, every shared smile, every playful gesture became a potential headline in the rumor mill. Fans went wild, speculating endlessly about a hidden romance, while Cliff quietly kept his distance. Olivia's heart was elsewhere, and Cliff, always conscientious and discreet, stepped back, leaving fans frustrated, curious, and utterly hooked. Cliff himself admitted, ever politely and without drama, that Olivia had stirred real, lasting feelings in him. But he wasn't about to plaster the story across magazine covers. Unlike the fleeting celebrity flings that dominate headlines, this connection was quiet, deliberate, and rooted in mutual respect. The almost factor is irresistible, the hidden possibility of a life that could have been. Cliff could have made it public, courted attention, and dominated the gossip pages. But he didn't. Instead, he let the mystery linger, and the absence of answers made the story even juicier. For a man whose love life has long been a riddle, this near romance became one of the most tantalizing unsolved mysteries of his life. Even decades later, when Olivia passed, Cliff's response was understated yet deeply telling. No grand public declarations, just quiet reverence, subtle heartbreak, and the unmistakable mark of someone who had known a meaningful bond that never became conventional romance. It shows that some connections aren't meant to dominate the news because they live on in memory, respect, and private affection. And yet, after all the near romances, crushes, and whispers, there's one relationship that refuses to fade into the background. The questions never really stop, because if Cliff ever came close to letting someone into his world, it might just have been this one. John McElynn, the mystery man. If there's one name that always gets people whispering about Cliff Richard, it's John McElynn. The two met back in the early 2000s, and before long, John wasn't just popping in for visits. He was living with Cliff in that dreamy Barbados mansion. And not just for a season. We're talking nearly 30 years under the same roof. You can imagine how fast the rumors started flying. Was John just a best friend who stuck around, or was there something more going on behind those closed doors? Cliff never gave a straight answer, which only made fans even more curious. He called John his companion, a word that raised plenty of eyebrows, and admitted that John was his rock during some pretty tough times. But every time people tried to label it as romance, Cliff would shut it down and remind everyone how much he valued his privacy. Still, you can't ignore how important John clearly was. 3 decades of living together isn't exactly casual, and when John sadly passed away in late 2022, Cliff was devastated. He didn't pour his heart out in public, but you could feel the weight of that loss. Even more intriguing, Cliff never once defined what they really were. Friends, confidant, anchor, love. The lines blurred, leaving fans obsessing over every glance and gesture caught on camera over the decades. And now, with John gone, the mystery feels even deeper. Was he simply Cliff's closest companion, or the great love story the world was never meant to know? The answer might never come, but it's the kind of secret that keeps speculation alive, sparking endless theories and quiet fascination. And here's where it gets really intriguing. Even after all those years, Cliff never once defined what they really were, which leaves fans wondering to this day, was John simply his closest confidant, or the great love story Cliff never wanted the world to dissect? The rumors that never died. Cliff Richard has been in the spotlight for over 6 decades, and while his music made him a legend, his love life is what kept people whispering. The biggest rumor? That Cliff might be gay. It's a story that's followed him for years, even more so when he invited John McElynn, a former priest turned close companion, to live with him in the 2000s. Suddenly, the tabloids had their perfect narrative, an Eternal Bachelor finally caught in a secret romance. Fans were divided. Some thought this was the answer to why Cliff never walked down the aisle. Others insisted it was just another case of the press twisting things to sell papers. What fueled the gossip wasn't proof, it was the silence. Cliff never gave juicy details, never slipped up, never fed the rumor mill, and that only made people dig deeper. For decades, headlines tried to pin a label on him. A man that famous, still single, must be hiding something, right? That was the logic. And as the years went by, the curiosity only grew. It wasn't just about romance anymore. It became a guessing game, with Cliff himself refusing to give the world the answer it craved. The Eternal Bachelor, that endless speculation only fed into his legendary status. The man everyone wanted to pin down remained just out of reach. Cliff Richard has been dodging wedding bells his whole life, and honestly, that's one of the reasons his personal story fascinates people so much. For him, it was never about not finding love. It was about keeping his freedom. He's admitted more than once that the demands of his career, his music, and his faith just didn't leave much room for the kind of commitment marriage requires. Still, that doesn't mean he hasn't felt the sting of loneliness. Cliff has been open about those moments, but he always circles back to one belief. He'd rather be single than stuck in a bad relationship. And that little confession says everything. It's not that he couldn't settle down, it's that he wouldn't settle. The vows he never made. His desire to stay true to himself and avoid settling isn't just about independence. It's deeply tied to his faith. So, when it comes to love, Cliff Richard's faith has always been right there in the background, quietly steering the ship. He's been open about being a committed Christian since the 1960s, so much so that at one point he even thought about giving up music altogether to become a missionary. That devotion shaped the way he saw relationships too. For Cliff, romance was never just about passion or headlines. It had to fit with the values he lived by. That's where things get interesting, because it means every rumored romance, Every close friendship and every whisper about his love life has always been filtered through the lens of a man who puts faith first. And that's the tension that's defined his story. Faith shaping his choices on one side, and a world of flashing cameras on the other. Because while Cliff was quietly navigating love through his beliefs, the tabloids were busy writing their own version of his life. Cliff Richard behind closed doors. Cliff Richard has never been a stranger to headlines, but when it comes to his personal life, he's always played things close to the chest. The press, of course, couldn't resist poking around, especially with all the speculation about his relationships. Things boiled over in 2018, when cameras showed up at his home during a police raid. The BBC thought they had a scoop, but Cliff wasn't having it. He dragged them to court, and in a very rare twist, he actually won. Since then, Cliff's approach to the media has been sharp and deliberate. He doesn't overshare, he doesn't get flustered, and when an interviewer tries to pry, he has a way of keeping his cool that almost makes the questions look silly. Instead of letting the tabloids write his story, Cliff flipped the script and started talking about something bigger: privacy. It's his subtle way of reminding everyone that no matter how famous you are, you still get to draw the line. And that's the thing about Cliff. He knows the public will always be curious, but he's mastered the art of mystery. He gives just enough to keep people talking, but never enough for anyone to pin him down. Which makes you wonder, is that the secret to why the rumors never die? So, what do you think? Has Cliff been quietly happy all along, or is there a story we'll never really get to hear? Share your thoughts in the comments down below. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to check out these next videos just for you. Catch you in the next one.